Travis Wayne Goodsell. I've got the first draft finished, and I will do a reading of it here for you, and make minor corrections as needed. And I should have a notebook ready to go in case I need to make major changes. Motion for immediate final judgment for plaintiff with prejudice. In case you don't know, if this is your first one and you're not going to the playlist to read the other ones prior to this is from case number 219 CV00711, and it is now CW DAO. It's myself, Travis Wayne Goodsell, versus Corporation of the President of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. I'm seeing some errors here. Double space this. Alrighty. So, following reasons: 18 U.S. Code 1512, which again, to remind you, involves tampering. And with the intent to murder, if you're unaware of that law. Alright, opening statement. The plaintiff's amended complaint indicated a fear that filing 30 September 2019 even the 25 November 2019 amended filing was too late. The plaintiff had attempted to reach out to the United States House Intelligence Committee to submit a whistleblower report against the defendant, but receptionists denied access to the House Intelligence Committee. The FBI online tip filing had been ignored, as had been filed. So I need to put "and" in there. The FBI online tip filing had been ignored, and as has been filed, all known venues were exhausted by the plaintiff before filing of this complaint. Before coronavirus, the plaintiff did not know that the assault would follow biblical apocalyptic patterns. In the book of Exodus, there is a story about a man named Moses who confronts a pharaoh of Egypt. Pharaohs were theocratic governments, combining government and religious leadership. Pharaoh consistently denied Moses' request to let his people go, until a coronavirus swept through the land, ending pharaonic succession with the death of Pharaoh's firstborn, birthright, and blessing son. The house of Israel listened to Moses and stayed in their homes until the virus passed over. The medical profession to this day uses Moses' serpent staff as their symbol for healing, as Moses instructed the house of Israel to stay home until the coronavirus passed over, until their coronavirus passed over. The founder of the original Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints considered his top position as the office of Moses. And I quote from section 107, verses 91 to 92. And again, the duty of the president of the office of the high priesthood is to preside over the whole church and to be like unto Moses. Behold, here is wisdom, yea, to be a seer, a revelator, a translator, and a prophet, having all the gifts of God which he bestows upon the head of the church. There are even scriptures by the founder, Joseph Smith Jr., that clearly indicate an apocalypse matching more of the Jews than of Christians, though it is clear Joseph Smith was following the ancient Egyptian apocalyptic literature. Joseph prophesied, as Mormons call it, that a future Mormon in the usurped organization after Joseph's death would fulfill the biblical prophecy of Jeremiah 23, to whom is the Christ, or Messiah, whom the Jews are waiting for to save them. From section 103, verse 16, Therefore I will raise up unto my people a man who shall lead them, like as Moses led the children of Israel. Never did I imagine that the enemy of mankind would utilize biblical apocalyptic literature to make their final attack. Yet Albert Pike of the Scottish Rites Masons, in his letter to Giuseppe Mazzini, dated 15 August 1871, revealed that the Third World War would destroy Christianity, Muslims, and Jews, and even atheists, and replace them with the doctrine of Lucifer. So as filed in 28, that's the docket number, the plaintiff is horrified that the religion he was born and raised in for 50 years now has the symbol of Lucifer on the keystone of the doors of the Salt Lake Temple, and as the foundation stone on the keystone of the Seagull Gate, both at Temple Square, the headquarters for the defendant. Brigham Young's branch-off organization is the religion Albert Pike was referring to as containing the doctrine of Lucifer, and would play a part in not only destroying the United States of America, but the world, and rise up from the ashes as conquerors. Arguments. If you don't understand the difference between opening statement and arguments, opening statement are not arguments. These are the arguments. 1. After plaintiff's filing of 27 motion for disbarment and disciplinary action, and 28 amended motion to strike, motion to dismiss, and motion for final judgment, the clerks responded by filing 27 and 28 correctly, which is a confession of having filed incorrectly previously. Which is a confession of guilt for having filed. Incorrectly previously. 2. After plaintiff's filing of 27 and 28, Percy James Pearson ceased working at my apartment building, leaving early on 10 June 2020. Other tenants' testimonies indicate Percy had left temporarily as a new guy was to fill in temporarily. Tenants informed the plaintiff that the reason for the switch was because the plaintiff was making terrorist threats. Yet no such arrest attempt had been made against the plaintiff. Such action with the timing suggests a confession of guilt. Suggests a confession of guilt by the defense. As well as another potential death threat toward the plaintiff if Your Honor orders in favor of the defendant. 3. After plaintiff's filing of 27 and 28, Percy's temporary replacement on 24 June 2020 saw me as a deer caught in the headlights as the plaintiff went to visit another tenant that morning after 8 a.m. During the visit, a person was witnessed by the plaintiff passing by the other tenant's window. Returning to the plaintiff's apartment, he witnessed the new guy had left and to date has not returned. Whatever information was given to this temporary replacement scared him away upon making eye contact with the plaintiff. After plaintiff's filing of 27 and 28, YouTube. If you've been paying attention, and if you've been listening to other videos, during a lawsuit, all involved must behave themselves. A Google online social media service, which the defendant has been presented in this court as being a major investor. From the 9th through the 12th of June 2020, shadow banned more than their usual shadow banning of the plaintiff's video uploads. On 1 October 2019, the day after the plaintiff's original filing, his website owners shut down his self-employment business, claiming the use of a new analytical Google program. Both Google and the website owner have the defendant as a major investor. After plaintiff's filing of 27 and 28, YouTube censored the plaintiff's viewing of other channels the evening of 25 June 2020. Anything you say and do will be used against you or the defendant in a court of law, of which you are a part of. We all know it. It's our Miranda rights. 5th, after the plaintiff's filing of 27 and 28, the plaintiff's air unit fan broke on 19 June 2020. This time, the property manager responded the same day and had a newer air unit on the 22nd for the plaintiff. An email was sent to the plaintiff by the property manager demonstrating a complete attitude shift from before filings 27 and 28, and a noticeable change in air quality. Such a change and timing suggests confession of guilt by the defense. 6. After plaintiff's filing of 27 and 28, Utah Governor Gary Herbert, a known Mormon, has made national news, causing the escalation of coronavirus in the state of Utah by disregarding all health officials' increasing warnings to return to a shutdown of the state. The state's coronavirus stats indicate Utah is worse currently than when Governor Herbert gave the initial order to shut down. As a consequence of Governor Herbert's refusal to return to shutdown conditions, many more Utahns have contracted coronavirus, been hospitalized, and have died. Governor Herbert began lifting the shutdown on 1st of May 2020. Then further liftings were made on 15 May 2020, the day Your Honor began her current position being assigned to this case first. Being first assigned to this case. On 15 May 2020, Governor Herbert also opened up the Salt Lake Airport after the arrest of the Salt Lake Airport director that morning. And I put in the link of the Attorney General's government site, which is a primary source documentation. Though I could have used any of the other outlets, news outlets that reported on it, but the Attorney General becomes the prime source document for this. There have been no follow-up hearings since Berg's arrest and incarceration at the Salt Lake County Jail. Berg has disappeared, just as the plaintiff disappeared in 2008. Under orders of the defendant. That week of the 15th of May 2020, governors were putting pressure on their state's airports to reopen, as airport directors were arguing that to reopen would place lives at risk. As of the 25th of June 2020, airports were reporting major losses as customers were not traveling by airplane as pre-coronavirus numbers. To justify the lifting of the shutdown, Governor Herbert downgraded most of Utah to yellow on the 15th of May 2020 as well. Governor Herbert has been exposed in numerous scandals in dealing with coronavirus, even with the suppression of testing in order to keep new cases below 200 per day to justify lifting the shutdown and lowering to yellow. But since 28 May 2020, the new case numbers have not been below 200. A return to orange, if not red, would mean shutting down the Salt Lake Airport again. After plaintiffs' filing of 27 and 28 on 12 June 2020, the defendant announced the resuming of missionary services. Resuming of missionary services requires the reopening of the Salt Lake Airport, which had reopened on 15 May 2020. As of 24 June 2020, the states of New York, New Jersey, and Connecticut are quarantining any passengers on flights from Utah, among other states with major outbreaks. New York is not only a source for missionary service for the defendant, it is also a temporary hub for missionaries of the defendant whose visas have not yet been cleared for travel to areas outside the United States across the Atlantic. Despite this consequential action by these three states, Governor Herbert still refuses to shut down the state and return to at least orange level. 8. The defendant's CEO, Russell M. Nelson, is a world-renowned medical doctor and claims the office of Moses mentioned above. See why I put it in there? It's related to the case. As a medical doctor, Nelson would know, as the governor's health officials, and as the federal health officials, and as the world health officials, that this virus required everyone to stay home from the initial outbreak until it passed over. Yet Nelson hesitated to shut down the organization, measuring his shutdown with that of Governor Herbert's. Nelson likewise reopened the organization, measured with Governor Herbert's reopening, in violation of counsel from health officials. This tactic by the Utah governor and Nelson has done harm. If you're unaware, there's a Hippocratic oath that all medical doctors take to do no harm, leading to deaths of Utahns. After the plaintiffs' filings of 27 and 28. On 17 June 2020, David A. Bednar of the defendant's Quorum of 12 Apostles spoke online to the BYU Law School. Lawsuit at the BYU Law School on religious freedom. In it, he blamed coronavirus for taking away the agency of Mormons to gather to church. Many in Utah have joined other voices across the nation. Why was there a dog barking? The person with a dog has moved away to Michigan, actually. Let's read that again. Many in Utah have joined other voices across the nation to demand their agency to not be kept safe from coronavirus, and to spread the virus to take away the agency of other human beings. Coronavirus cannot be sued for criminal actions of taking away humans' agency of life, liberty, and property. Only humans can be held accountable for their crimes. I shouldn't have to put that in this filing. And yet here we are. 9. After the plaintiff's filings of 27 and 28, Jeffrey R. Holland of the defendant's Quorum of the 12 held a video interview on 8 June 2020 with an Israeli Jew, time estimated to be around 11 a.m. here in Utah. The defense counsel would not have been able to consult with their clients about the plaintiff's recent filings until after Holland's interview. On 17 June 2020, the defendant released a spokesman's statement indicating that Holland had been hospitalized the previous week after several days of illness. The illness, therefore, began after being consulted by defense counsel. 10. After the plaintiff's filings of 27 and 28 on 11 June 2020, the stock market's Dow dropped 1,800 points. The defendant is a heavy investor in the stock market, as the plaintiff has previously filed that the defendant's Ensign Peak Associates had a stock portfolio of $40 billion. The plaintiff also identified in that same filing of other known investment companies of the defendant. For the defendant to not have been involved in such a sell-off is highly unlikely. The timing and appearance of such activity is a pattern of behavior of those preparing to flee justice. This same pattern of behavior was exhibited at the start of the coronavirus, as investors sold their stock in unfriendly coronavirus companies to reinvest in friendly coronavirus companies, which occurred right after the defendant was served by the plaintiff. Again, for the defendant to have not been involved in the initial coronavirus sell-off is highly unlikely. The defendant is a flight risk, having passports, religious ministry credentials, and access to jet travel, as Governor Herbert purposely opened up the Salt Lake Airport after the removal of the director, and is refusing to shut the airport it down again, despite the rising pleas from health officials and city and county mayors. The appearance and timing are as if the defendant is waiting for the judicial decision in a federal case that they know they've lost, despite appointing a brand new magistrate judge who had been a former federal defense attorney. And whom are you referring to, Travis? Closing statement. How many coincidences does it take for one to be justified in being suspicious? All those involved in the case have committed actions after being called out that indicate guilt, as they are now on their best behavior, awaiting your Honor's final judgment, just like a child right before Christmas in the hopes of getting favorable gifts. The defendant's influence and reach is worldwide, which is why, if your Honor orders for the defense, the plaintiff's life will immediately be in imminent danger. Your Honor has, by delaying judgment out of character, is enabling the defense to prepare to flee, as it is confirmed again that the defendant has government support. As a former defense counsel, Your Honor knows that counsel only delays when they are losing, and as such is also tampering in a federal proceeding. Thus the reason for the motion, the law. 27 June 2020 is the day of remembrance for Mormons of the assassination of Joseph Smith Jr., yet the defendant, yet again, has no intention of holding any sort of ceremony. Instead, the defendant has gotten the state to recognize the 24th of July as a state holiday over the date of the state of Utah entering the United States. Over the date of this, 24 July 1844 is recognized as the date when Brigham Young arrived in the Salt Lake Valley, having fled the United States, and then afterward murdering the indigenous people of the valley of what was Mexico territory to build up his short-lived Kingdom of Deseret as a racist, sexist, bigoted, murderous, sex slave-owning king. The defendant is helping to escalate the seriousness of the virus and have not informed Mormons not to pay tithing on their government benefit stimulus check. In a criminal case against the defendant, investigators would be wise to check for tithing payments equal to 10% of their stimulus check received, as it is mandatory for Mormons to pay and not a donation. Warren Jeffs of the FLDS Church was taken down here in Utah for a similar federal crime involving SNAP benefits to polygamous wives, but given to the leadership. The plaintiff's third great-grandfather, John Solomon Fulmer, gave Joseph Smith his single-shot pistol the morning of the 27th of July, 1844, as he went to get the militia to protect Joseph and his brother Hiram. The plaintiff's ancestor was late to save Joseph, who was the presidential candidate running as the first abolitionist. The plaintiff hopes to restore the memory and honor of Joseph Smith and his good name that has been smeared by the defendant with lies and false accusations to justify the defendant's usurping founder's criminal and hateful actions, even to giving the order to John Taylor and Willard Richards to see to it that Joseph and Hiram were murdered. Ordering in favor of the plaintiff with prejudice is the obvious decision, which does not require any more time for deliberations. And 26th of June, 2020. 26th of June, 26th of June. There we go.